Have you ever looked at someone you love and thought, why aren't they changing? What is wrong with them? Why do they keep saying they want help and then doing the same thing over and over? Or maybe you've looked in the mirror and asked yourself that same question. Why am I not changing faster? Why do I keep going back and forth? Why do I want something different and still feel completely stuck? Here's what I want you to know. You're not stuck because something is broken inside of you. You're stuck because nobody's ever explained how change actually works. Change isn't one big decision. It's not one dramatic moment. It's not a personality transplant. Change is a process, and there are stages to it. And once you understand the stages, you can stop shaming yourself for not being where you think you should be and start asking the real question, where am I right now? And what kind of support do I need? That's what this video is going to give you. Hey, I'm Shannon. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I'm also a licensed addiction counselor with over a decade of experience in addiction. This is the Recovery Mirror, where we look at patterns underneath the behavior so change becomes possible, not just talked about. Just a quick reminder, this is for educational purposes only. It's not therapy, it's not crisis care. So if you're in immediate danger or thinking of harming yourself, please reach out to a crisis line or emergency services right now. Okay, so let's talk about the 5 stages of change. Before I walk you through them, I need to say something that's very important. The stages of change are a map. They're not a weapon. They're not something to use to label someone as lazy, resistant, manipulative, or hopeless. They're not something to use to beat yourself up either. They're a tool to help you understand where someone is in the process of change, because different stages need different kinds of support. A person who doesn't see the problem yet will obviously not need the same support as someone who's already taking action. A person who's torn between continuing to use and making changes doesn't need the same support as someone already taking action. A person who's had a relapse doesn't need to be treated like they've learned nothing from their recovery experience. So as we go through these, listen for yourself, listen for someone you love, but please don't use this to shame them or yourself. Use it to have a better understanding of the overall process that is actually occurring. So stage 1, this is called pre-contemplation stage. This is when a person isn't really considering making a change yet. In most cases, they don't even see the substance use as a problem at all. When confronted, you or your loved one might minimize the behavior. They might blame other people for events surrounding the substance use or deny using altogether. They might say it's not that bad or tell you everyone's just overreacting. They might use language like, I can handle it, or even blame shift in an attempt to avoid looking at their behavior. For families, this stage is brutal because from the outside looking in, the problem looks obvious to you. You can see what it's costing them, and you can see and feel what it's costing you. Please understand, they just don't see it, or they're just not ready to see their behaviors or their use as a problem. Here's the hard truth most of the time. Awareness can't be forced, and honestly, can even make the situation worse. What helps in this stage isn't lecturing, it isn't shaming, it isn't a 2-hour speech about everything they've done wrong. What helps in this stage is raising honest questions in a calm and respectful way. Asking things like, what do you think is working in your life right now? Can you tell me what's not working? What do you want things to look like in your life 6 months from now? What would have to happen for you to feel concerned about this situation? And for the person in pre-contemplation stage that is watching right now, if any part of you is wondering if this is costing you more than you want to admit, that's the crack. That's where awareness starts for you. Sometimes change begins with one honest crack in denial, and I know that moment can feel uncomfortable for you. Stage 2, this is called the pre-contemplation stage. This is where the person sees the substance use as a problem and sometimes is able to see the possibility of change, but they feel torn. They might say things like, I know I need to stop using, but I'm just not ready yet. I know this is hurting me, but I don't know how to live without it. I want my life to be different, but I'm scared it won't work for me. This stage is full of something we call ambivalence. And ambivalence just means part of you wants change and part of you doesn't. That doesn't make you a liar. That doesn't make you hopeless or a bad person. It just makes you human. We're going to talk more about ambivalence in the next video because, in my opinion, it's one of the most misunderstood areas of recovery. The work in this stage isn't to force a decision. It's to understand both sides and validate both of them because they're both relevant. Some questions to consider are: what do you want your life to look like? What is this pattern costing you? And what are you afraid you'll lose if you actually stop using and make a change? Stage 3, this is the preparation stage. This is when something really starts shifting inside you or your loved one. Understand the person doesn't have everything figured out yet, but they're starting to move in that direction. They might make statements like, I guess I need a plan. I need help to do this. I need to stop putting myself in that situation. I need to talk to someone that can understand me and what I'm going through. I need to be honest. And as much as these words feel like defeat to the person saying them, as a counselor, this is exciting to hear because this is what we have been waiting for, to hear this change talk. It may be the first time you have ever gotten honest with someone else and are truly searching for a solution. Preparation matters because this is where desire becomes more structured. A plan isn't just another I'm done in a hard moment, but a plan. And a plan answers the real questions. What do I do when I'm overwhelmed? What do I do after a fight? What do I do on payday? What do I do when I feel lonely? What do I do when shame gets loud in my head? What do I do when I want to isolate? Preparation is powerful because it tells the truth, and that is good intentions need support. Now on to stage 4. This is our action stage. This is the stage everyone celebrates. The person is going to meetings, they've started treatment, they're setting boundaries, they're even avoiding high-risk situations. They're reaching out to you instead of hiding. Action looks like progress to everyone, and honestly it is. But I have to be honest with you about something that nobody ever warns people about. When you remove the substance, the feelings underneath get louder. The loneliness gets louder. The shame feels heavier. The grief shows up sometimes for the first time in years. Anxiety rises. Boredom feels unbearable. Relationships feel awkward. And at times, you don't even know who you are anymore. A lot of people in this action stage think something is wrong with them. They start thinking recovery isn't working because they feel worse than they did when they were using. I'm here to tell you that is not recovery failing. That is old coping patterns no longer covering the pain. The action stage needs more than willpower. It needs encouragement, structure, accountability, skill building, and people who understand and are compassionate about what you're actually going through. And remember this, in early recovery, our brains are just starting to produce dopamine and other important chemicals that regulate our mood. Because your brain has reduced chemicals in your brain due to us flooding it with substances that look much like dopamine, which we will talk about more in another video. But understand it can take some time for your brain to feel like it can start releasing those chemicals safely. For many people, just identifying and preparing for this is helpful. Moving on to stage 5. This is the stage called maintenance. This is when the person is working to protect their progress. Maintenance doesn't mean everything is perfect. It doesn't mean you never feel tempted. It doesn't mean you have all the answers. Maintenance means you're staying sober, strengthening the new patterns, you're building the new life. The questions in this stage are different. Some to consider might be, what helps me stay grounded? What situations still put me at risk? What am I overlooking? Where am I getting overconfident? Am I isolating? Am I still going to meetings like I was? What old pattern is trying to sneak back in? The maintenance stage is not boring. Maintenance is where a new life actually gets built. Now, I want to talk about something that doesn't always get included in the stages, but I believe it's very important. It's called recurrence. And a lot of people like to call it relapse, but I prefer the word recurrence because that better describes what is actually happening. This is a return to our old using or drinking pattern without making it the person's identity, so to speak. A recurrence does not mean a person learned nothing in recovery. It doesn't mean all the progress is gone. It doesn't mean you're hopeless. It does mean, however, something needs to be looked at honestly. Some questions to consider might be, what happened before the return to the old pattern? What high-risk situation showed up? What support was missing? What emotion went unmanaged? What warning sign got ignored? What does the plan need to look like now to prevent this from reoccurring? Reoccurrence is not something to romanticize, and honestly, many folks have never went back to substance use, and those that are able to maintain continuous sobriety usually are working a daily program of recovery. But if something happens along the way, I need you to remember that shame alone doesn't teach anyone anything, but honest reflection and a strong plan will. I can look back at my own life and see every one of these stages. There were years that I was in pre-contemplation. I didn't think I had a problem. I thought everybody else was the problem. My job, my boss, my relationships, the people who didn't understand me. And that was denial talking. When I moved into contemplation, part of me knew I needed to stop, and part of me just wasn't ready. I'd have moments of clarity, usually after something painful. And then I talk myself right back out of recovery. Preparation didn't happen for me until I was willing to be honest about what I actually needed. Not what looked good to everyone else, not what everyone else wanted me to do, but what I actually needed. And honestly, taking action was harder than I ever expected. Because when I stopped numbing with drugs and alcohol, everything I'd been numbing showed up like an emotional reunion. All of it, the grief, the shame, the things I had done, all the people I'd hurt, not to mention the depression and anxiety. Honestly, that stage almost broke me, but it also rebuilt me. And maintenance is where we end up, not perfectly, not without any struggle, but intentionally, daily, honestly. The point of me telling you this is not to make it look like I have it all figured out. The point is I went through every one of these changes, sometimes more than once. And so will you in some form or fashion. And that doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. I think sometimes it is important to look at substance use like you would any other disease. You have the means to put it in remission. But like other diseases, if we aren't careful and consistently taking care of ourselves, we can return. Here's one of the most important things I can tell you about the stages of change. People don't move through them in a straight line. You might be in action in one area of your life and in contemplation in another. You might be in maintenance and still have a high-risk situation that catches you off guard. You might move forward, slip back into an old pattern, and then re-engage stronger than before. And no, that's not failure. That's how change actually happens for most people. When you understand your stage, you can ask for the right kind of help. Pre-contemplation, it's going to need awareness. Contemplation needs help with ambivalence. Preparation needs a plan. Action needs support and skills. Maintenance needs protection and continued growth. And recurrence needs honest reflection, not punishment. That's a much more useful question than what is wrong with me. The stages of change show us that change is a process. It's not an instant fix. It's not one emotional promise. It's not one dramatic moment. It's a process. And when you understand the process, you can stop using shame as your only tool. You can start asking, where am I actually in this process? What do I need to better understand? And what's the next honest step? Now, before you close this video, tell me in the comments which stage you think that you're in right now. Not where you think you should be, but where you actually are. That answer matters more than you even know. It tells you what kind of support to look for next. If you're considering recovery or just interested, it's the next honest step. Then I encourage you to watch the next video because we're going deeper into the part of change that trips up almost everyone. Why part of you wants recovery, and part of you still wants that old relief. It's called ambivalence. And once you understand it, everything about your recovery starts to make more sense. Again, I want to remind you that if you are struggling to stay sober, I encourage you to reach out to a local assessment center and complete an assessment, and then explore local substance use treatment options. If this video was helpful, would you take a second to like it and subscribe to the Recovery Mirror? It really helps this message reach more people who may need this recovery education without feeling shamed. I also created a free Stages of Change checklist handout that goes with this topic. You can download it using the link in the description. I also want to let you know that my book, Beyond the Mask, is now available on Amazon. If you are a Kindle Unlimited customer, at the time of this video, you can read it through your membership free of charge. The book goes deeper into shame, identity, survival patterns, self-forgiveness, and learning how to live beyond the version of yourself that was just trying to survive. It is written to also be helpful to families who are trying to understand and communicate with more compassion around substance use disorder, and also those helping in the field. The link to the free handout and the book are both in the description below. And remember, you are worthy of recovery and worth the work.